The moment I glanced at my husband's phone, I realized that some secrets never arrive with loud warnings because they quietly slip into ordinary days and destroy everything from the inside. My name is Claire Bennett, and until that unforgettable evening in the peaceful town of Asheville, North Carolina, I believed 24 years of marriage had given me a future built on trust instead of carefully hidden lies. That evening felt completely ordinary, which made what happened next even more painful because I had spent the afternoon preparing our favorite homemade dinner while soft music drifted through the kitchen and the warm smell of garlic, herbs, and fresh bread filled every corner of the house. My husband, Daniel, had gone upstairs for his usual shower after arriving home from work, leaving his phone charging beside a bowl of fruit on the counter without the slightest concern that anything unusual might happen while he was gone. Just as I finished placing the dishes on the dining table, Danielle's phone vibrated gently across the countertop, and the bright screen displayed a message that instantly stole every peaceful thought from my mind because it simply read, "I cannot stop thinking about last night and I miss you already." My heart felt strangely calm, instead of panicked as I stared at those words. But deep inside I sensed that the life I had spent decades building was quietly beginning to collapse before I even understood how serious the truth might be. I had never searched through my husband's private conversations because trust had always seemed more valuable than suspicion, yet something deep inside me insisted that ignoring the message would only allow a terrible lie to grow even larger, until it consumed everything we had created together. My hands trembled as I unlocked the phone using the anniversary date we had proudly shared for years, and, after reading enough messages to understand that this relationship had been continuing for months, I answered from his phone with a short invitation asking the mysterious woman to visit the house, because I wanted the truth to walk directly through my front door. After placing the phone exactly where I had found it, I quietly sat alone in the living room while the sound of running water continued upstairs, and every passing minute felt heavier than the last because I knew there was no path back to the innocent life I had believed existed only moments earlier. Instead of crying or screaming, I focused on remaining completely calm, silently promising myself that whatever happened next would reveal the full truth, and no amount of deception would ever force me to look away again. The doorbell finally echoed through the quiet house, and when I opened the front door I found a confident woman about my age standing on the porch with a small, overnight bag in one hand and an uncertain smile that disappeared the instant she realized I was not supposed to be the person welcoming her inside. She hesitated for only a heartbeat before nervously asking if Daniel was home, but instead of answering her question, I calmly stepped aside, invited her inside, and watched the color slowly drain from her face as she understood that something had gone terribly wrong. Before either of us could speak again, Daniel came downstairs with damp hair and a relaxed expression that instantly turned into complete disbelief when he saw both of us standing together in the entryway under the soft glow of the hallway lights. The silence became so heavy that it almost felt impossible to breathe, because the frightened look they exchanged revealed more truth than any explanation they could possibly invent, and I realized this betrayal had been carefully hidden for much longer than I had ever imagined. The woman introduced herself as Vanessa Cole, speaking with a shaky voice that suggested she had rehearsed this meeting many times but never expected it to happen this way, while Daniel immediately insisted that everything was a misunderstanding that deserved a calm conversation. I looked directly into both of their eyes and quietly asked how long they had expected me to disappear before they could finally begin the life they had already planned together. And neither of them found the courage to answer because my questions struck closer to the truth than either of them expected. Vanessa eventually turned toward the front door, clearly desperate to escape the uncomfortable situation. But as she hurried away, a large envelope slipped from her handbag onto the hardwood floor without her noticing that she had dropped it. After closing the door behind her, I opened the envelope and discovered documents describing a beautiful mountain cabin that had recently been purchased through a private investment company, along with paperwork suggesting that someone had already begun preparing a completely different future while I remained unaware inside my own marriage. Daniel tried to explain that nothing had happened the way it appeared and claimed the cabin was only a business investment, but every carefully chosen sentence sounded rehearsed rather than honest because his confidence had already begun to crack under the weight of undeniable evidence. I slipped the documents back into the envelope, quietly told him that we would continue the conversation another day, and walked toward the kitchen with a strange sense of calm, knowing that the painful truth had finally stepped into the light and that this was only the beginning of a much larger story. The following morning arrived beneath a sky filled with heavy gray clouds, yet I followed my normal routine as though nothing had changed because I wanted Daniel to believe I was still overwhelmed instead of carefully observing every move he made. He kissed my cheek before leaving for work out of pure habit, and I returned a polite smile that revealed nothing while quietly deciding that emotions could wait because facts would protect me far better than anger ever could. As soon as his car disappeared down the street, I opened our financial records and began reviewing years of bank statements that I had never questioned before because complete trust had once made every transaction seem ordinary and harmless. After several hours of patient searching, I noticed a pattern of regular payments sent to a company called Summit Ridge Consulting, and further research revealed that the business belonged to Vanessa, proving that money from our shared accounts had quietly helped support the hidden life they were building together. I carefully searched Daniel's home office next, making sure every drawer and folder was returned to its exact place so he would never suspect that I had uncovered the truth hidden behind his organized shelves and locked file boxes. Inside one thick folder I discovered printed plans for the mountain cabin, handwritten notes dividing our property, and a detailed timeline explaining that they intended to wait until our youngest daughter finished her first semester at college before asking me for a divorce, making it painfully clear that every step had been planned long before I ever saw that message. Rather than breaking down, I photographed every document and backed up the images in several secure locations before calling my closest friend, Rebecca Hayes, a woman who had survived a difficult divorce years earlier and understood exactly how carefully betrayal could be disguised behind polite smiles. She listened without interrupting while I explained everything from the mysterious message to the hidden paperwork, then firmly advised me to stay in the house, collect every piece of evidence I could find, and immediately contact an experienced family attorney before revealing how much I already knew. Later that afternoon, our daughter, Emma, called from college with excitement about her classes, but her cheerful voice suddenly turned uncertain when she mentioned that Daniel had recently asked whether she thought I might be happier living closer to my elderly mother in another state. The realization struck me with heartbreaking clarity because he had already begun planting a false story within our own family, hoping everyone would believe I wanted to leave on my own, and at that moment I promised myself that no matter how patiently he had prepared his version of the truth, the real story would be the one that survived. The next afternoon I met with an experienced family attorney named Ethan Caldwell, whose quiet confidence immediately reassured me that he cared more about careful preparation than dramatic courtroom speeches or emotional promises that could never be guaranteed. After reviewing every photograph, financial record, and handwritten note I had collected, he leaned back in his chair and calmly explained that the strongest advantage I had was not my heartbreak but the clear evidence showing that Daniel had been planning this separation while secretly using our shared resources to build another future. Before I left his office, Ethan handed me a detailed checklist and encouraged me to remain patient, because people hiding important secrets often become careless once they believe they have escaped suspicion and gained control of the situation. His advice completely changed the way I viewed everything around me, so instead of reacting with anger, I quietly observed Daniel's daily routine, saved every suspicious message and financial transaction, and allowed him to believe that I was still struggling to understand what had happened instead of preparing for what would come next. During the following week, Daniel unexpectedly transformed into the thoughtful husband I had not seen in years, bringing home my favorite meals, surprising me with flowers, and sharing old family photographs as though happy memories alone could erase months of calculated deception and dishonesty. Every gentle smile and carefully chosen apology sounded less like genuine regret and more like an attempt to rewrite history, because his actions suggested he was not trying to save our marriage but desperately trying to protect the version of events that would make him appear innocent when everything finally became public. One quiet evening, our son, Mason, called from another city where he had recently started a new career, and during our conversation, he casually mentioned that his father had hinted our marriage had been struggling for a long time because I supposedly wanted a completely different life. Although hearing those words hurt more deeply than I expected, I answered with kindness instead of frustration because I refused to let Daniel turn our children into unwilling participants in a story built on half-truths. manipulation, and carefully planted misunderstandings. As another rainy night settled over the neighborhood, I stood alone beside the window looking across the backyard where our family had celebrated birthdays, graduations, and countless ordinary moments that once seemed impossible to lose, yet now felt strangely distant and unfamiliar. Instead of mourning the future Daniel believed he had already taken from me, I quietly embraced a new determination that surprised even me, because every document I collected, every lie I uncovered, and every calm decision I made was slowly leading me toward the moment when the complete truth would finally. A few days later, Daniel invited me to the annual celebration hosted by his company at a beautiful hotel overlooking the river, believing the elegant setting would help him maintain the perfect image he had worked so hard to protect while quietly preparing his new life behind my back. I accepted the invitation without hesitation, because Ethan had assured me that the right moment to reveal the truth would arrive naturally, and after weeks of gathering evidence, I finally felt ready to face whatever happened next with complete confidence. As the evening progressed, Daniel introduced me to coworkers and business partners with practiced smiles that almost convinced me none of the past weeks had happened. Yet every conversation reminded me how carefully appearances can hide reality until someone is brave enough to expose it. When Vanessa unexpectedly arrived at the event believing she was attending as Daniel's future partner rather than the hidden secret she had always been, the carefully balanced illusion collapsed before either of them had time to prepare another believable explanation. At the appropriate moment, I calmly requested a private meeting with Daniel, Vanessa, and to senior executives who had unknowingly approved several questionable business payments connected to the consulting company that existed only to disguise personal expenses and property purchases. One by one, I presented the financial records, photographs, property documents, and handwritten plans I had collected over the previous weeks, leaving the room completely silent as every carefully hidden detail fit together into a clear picture that neither Daniel nor Vanessa could deny or explain away. Daniel finally admitted that their relationship had begun long before he planned to end our marriage, and although he apologized repeatedly while claiming he never intended to hurt anyone, his words carried little weight after months of deception and manipulation had already spoken much louder than any apology ever could. I walked away from that meeting with my dignity intact, the legal process already moving forward under Ethan's careful guidance, and the comforting realization that honesty may sometimes arrive slowly, but once it appears, it becomes impossible for even the biggest lie to overcome. Several months later, I had settled into a peaceful new chapter of my life filled with genuine friendships, renewed confidence, and the quiet happiness that comes from knowing I never allowed someone else's betrayal to define my future or steal my self-respect. Looking back now, I understand that losing the life I thought I wanted became the first step toward discovering the stronger life I truly deserved. And if my story reminds even one person to value truth, courage, and self-worth above empty promises, then every painful lesson carried a meaningful purpose. Please subscribe to our channel and share this video.